Alright, hello everyone. This is the first in what is hopefully a multi-part playlist on getting everyone comfortable with Git, how to install it, how to use it, and how to become better Git citizens. So this first video is about installing Git and getting started particularly on a Windows machine, though there is a part 2 which is related to getting access to the github.rcac.purdue.edu repositories, that LDAP group, and then the end of this video is going to be something of a pimp my ride with Git kind of an approach. So to start, you need a Git client, and on Windows, git-scm is your tool. If you have a Unix-based system, then you have this generally installed by default. So we're going to go ahead and manually download and wait just a minute for this to go. So the basic Git setup is pretty easy. It's a matter of doing the install and then clicking through the process. Of course, one of the things that we'll do here is have some discussion about GUI versus Bash. As a matter of preference, well, first let's read the full text of the license agreement. I read very quickly. And next, we'll install. Yeah, that's fine. And then here we are. So the first place where you're posed with a choice is here. So in general, when we're using Bash in our research group, and really anywhere out in the wild, if you're on a system where you need to connect to some remotes, like you want to use compute resources or something like that, you're not going to have access to a GUI. So I know some of you use Git GUI, and that's fine. But if you go to any of these resources, that GUI will not be available, and I think it's better for everyone if you just learn Git commands in their kind of natural habitat. So I'm just going to not even install the GUI. We'll leave Git Bash here. You don't need desktop icons or start menu icons or anything because you get integration with Explorer, which means you right-click and you can interact with Git. Also, I recommend you check this daily update for Git. This thing runs actually really fast, and once you've clicked through this once, it only will reprompt you for changes if you want to make something different. Otherwise, it'll use your last known configuration, which is pretty handy. So the next thing we want to do is install Git in the Start menu folder. That's fine, and then you want to pick your editor. So for people who are not Vim wizards, of which I believe I am one, you're probably going to want to do this Notepad++. So go install that on your own. I think everyone can handle that and use it. It does really nice things with creating text files that aren't associated with a file type. So if you use like Notepad or something like that, when you save, it's usually always a .txt file, and you need to be able to do some interaction with extensionless text files. You could use Nano, but it's pretty cumbersome in the Bash environment that gets installed with git-scm. So I'm going to go ahead and use Vim. And I'm going to select the default for where we use it. We want the SSL library. We want to do this checkout Windows style, commit Unix style. This will save you a lot of headache when you start moving between servers and local stuff. Mostly Windows is not the preferred environment for this kind of work, but it does work pretty nicely for cross-platform if you use this option. Also, I prefer the MinTTY. You can use the Windows default console window, but that reminds me too much of like DOS, and I don't like to use it. So then we'll do symbolic links. That's not strictly speaking necessary, but it's a nice extra have. And then we'll wait for this to install. So it's pretty small. This install process goes pretty fast, and we will get started with Git. We'll just wait for a minute while this goes. And then once we do this part, I'll do a little quick demo, and we'll move on to interacting with the Purdue GitHub lab page. 1:49 on a Wednesday. This is a great way to spend your evenings. Okay, so here we are close to the end. Come on. Get over there. Go do it. Smash that like and subscribe. Yeah, okay, we're not going to do release notes. We're just going to start. So if I open a window here, let's pick, I don't know, documents. When I right click, now that I've done that install, I now have this handy Git Bash here. So I'm going to open it. By default, this is a little bit ugly. You can tune it up if you know some bash customization, but we're not going to get into that here. If you do Control-Shift and plus, we can make this great big for people to do work. You can kind of do this part how you like. Most of the hangovers from Unix days make it easy and kind of better to just use your default tilde directory. So I'm just going to go there. CD brings us here. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually save this to our quick access because it's worth having. So if you go into this PC, to the C drive, users, and U, this is tilde exactly. So if we do a little ls, oh, don't highlight it, just get there. This is the start menu, templates, videos. It's all of this general stuff. So I believe I can click here and then just, can I drag it? No. All right, how about this? Right click, pin, no, dang it. How about like this? Pin to quick access, that's what I want. So now I click it and you go right there. So that's a first step of kind of pre-optimization to make this nice. Okay, so now Git's installed, but we don't have everything that we need yet. So if I go in here and let's just use Git, let's just get started. So let's do make a directory, we're gonna call it Git repo. Sure, why not? And we have to tell Git that this is a Git repository, so we're gonna initialize it, git init, bare, meaning we can check it out and it has branches and stuff. Also, if you're going to share this with anybody else, good to do shared group. Git's going to do this thing and it's going to make an empty Git repository, which is great. We don't actually want to use this. It says bare, which means there are no local branches. So if you do like git branch -a, git branch rather, isn't going to show anything because it doesn't have branches in the typical sense. But anyway, this is I guess getting away from the point. So if I did not mean to do that. I'm gonna do a little fix up -rf git because I don't want that to be there. Git repo. Okay, LSH doesn't have anything in it. Okay, well I may have just screwed this up, but that's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and I did a bare one there, and then I'm gonna go up a level, and I'm going to try to check it out. So let's do a git clone, and we're gonna do git repo and cool repo name. Sure. All right, so now I have a folder that is cool repo name, and oh, here, look, we have all this craziness about stuff that we don't need. So I'm going to delete all of that. Maybe that'll get rid of that git nonsense. Also, if you haven't done it, it's a good idea to turn on these view hidden items. I don't need that folder. I don't need that folder. Well, let me make sure. Yeah, I don't need that folder either. So you don't have to do this. This is just problem solving from a problem that I created, which is great. Okay, yeah, there. So now I got rid of all that nonsense. So let's go look inside here. So if I go into my cool repo name, there it is. So there are no files, but I want to make one because I need to demo the rest of this setup. So let's touch my file. This creates it. Get status. You see we have my file. We're going to add it. My file. And come back to the top. Get status. Now I have one that's ready to commit. So here's where you're going to encounter your first setup and something that you'll have to do. I want to show it to you so you will not be alarmed. So I will do git commit demo commit. And Git says, ouch, please tell me who you are. Okay, this is easy to set up and we should do it. So we're just going to follow exactly what it says. We do git config global user.email. I'm going to be me at you, sure. So that's step one. Step two, config global user.name, And this is Chris Ezra. That's, oh, just so you know it's me. So this is important for when you make commits. It lets you identify yourself. So now that I've done that, if I do git log, oh, I don't have any commits yet. So let's actually do that commit. Let's up arrow until we get the commit message again. Git commit. And now git log. So you see that it's me, and that's my email address, and this is the demo commit. So that's the first step, and it created you this cool file, which is /.git config. Yeah, so this is all the stuff that Git uses behind the scenes to, one, make your Git experience good, but also kind of identify you. So this is step one. This is all the way set up with Git, and we are ready to rock and roll. So the next thing that I want to demonstrate for everyone is how to get access to the Purdue SOS GitLab page. So you don't have one by default if you're a new student, unless you've gone through these steps. So if I fire up a browser and I go to github.rcac.purdue.edu, you will first come to the Open Repositories page, which is all of the open repositories on github.rcac.purdue.edu. The SOS Lab has a private page, and you need to get access to it. So you click the Sign In button, and then you go to right here where it says GitHub users create your GitHub account first. So we're going to click it. Wait a minute for it to decide to take us where we're going to go. Log in with your boiler key, which you should already have set up. And then you do your two-factor. And it should bring you to the landing page for RCAC. So over here on the left, there is request access. Maybe don't do that. Request access. So if you drop down here into the search bar and you start with Dr. D's username, Laura here, it will prompt you with the Systems Laboratory, and you press enter, and it will give you an opportunity to request access. I'm not sure what exactly you will see here, considering I've already done this, but the thing that you're after is right there. It's the Unix group SOS Lab. Please don't request access to EXRC. You can request RICE if you think you might need compute access, but we can do all of this within a day after the fact. Right now, you just need the SOS page. And so, I'm sorry, the SOS group. So if you do that, then when I get a notification email, I can pop down here and approve you. So this is what it looks like from the manager end, and you'll see for an example, Garrett has access here, and that's what gives everybody access to the LDAP group that we're all in, and lets you get GitHub access. So if I go back to our windows here, once you've done that, you wait a day or so, and then you get your access. You can go to our actual landing page, which is github.rcac.purdue.edu, and when you go to sign in, you can be yourself, which is great. So here we are, and this will bring you to the set of repositories that you're allowed to see for the SOS Lab page. If you are new to this and you don't remember exactly what the address is, if you go click on your picture, which is some weird Bitmoji looking thing, you can go to your profile and then click on your organizations over here, and it will take you to our page, which is github.rcac.purdue.edu/systems laboratory. So even if you don't have this set up, you can still go see the Start repository, which is right here. Inside of Start is all of the Git workflow stuff and also a cloning tool, which I'm going to demo in just a second. So of particular interest, of course, read the guide, the README page, but after you do that, go to the wiki and look at these workflows. So the workflows are in increasing order of difficulty. Start with workflow 1 and just kind of generally follow along here. So all of these have what the Git commands are, in the order you should run them, and what they do in plain English, and what you should take away. Git for Developers, for example, has some 4 monkeys to copy code. So if you want to just copy and paste, you can go there and do that. But now we're all set to go. So the first thing that you'll want to do when you have access is you'll go to Clone or Download. And you will start by default with HTTPS. So if you copy this and you go into your Git. I'm going to make a place for this. Git. This is where I like to keep all of mine. It's handy because that cd command goes right here, and it's right next to all of your other sort of default configuration settings. So if I go into that directory, I can now do git clone, and since I've copied it, I do shift insert, and there's this HTTPS business for the address, and I press enter. So it says, let me go ahead and clone and get all this stuff done. This repository is open, so there's no big deal there. If, for example, though, you pick one that is closed, like our examples repo, because this is specific to our group, and you say clone, Git will pop up the credential manager for Windows, and you'll have to enter your username and password. I find this to be pretty lame, but I'm going to do it anyway. Done. There. And so now you've got your clone and everything works. So this is the end of part 2 of just how to get going with the SOS Lab. Part 3, this is the pimp my ride stuff. So this so far has been easy, and the next part's a little bit more complicated, but hang with me, it's worth it. So I don't want to enter my password, and I don't think that you do either. And there is a way to fix that up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete everything in here. And we're going to do this again, but we're going to do it the smart way. So what we need is SSH keys. And what SSH keys do is there's a public key and a private key, and by giving GitHub your public key and maintaining your private key to yourself, you can use Git and still do like a faux login, but it does it securely and behind the scenes. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to make a particular directory, and it's called .ssh. Makes sense for SSH keys. So if we go in there, then we need SSH keys. So you take my word for it. This is the way to do it. SSH keygen -t RSA. This specifies the kind of encryption you're going to use. -b, how many bits do you want for this key? And 2048 is a good round number to use. It's fast. Anything bigger doesn't really buy you extra security. This is kind of a good measure. So it's going to, by default, try to put this in .ssh under the name IDRSA. That's totally fine. And we're not going to use a passphrase for this one. You can make a passphrase if you want, but you'll have to enter it every time, which, in my opinion, defeats the whole purpose. So enter the same passphrase again, and it does use some cool random art of your picture. So what do we have now? What did that buy us? Well, if you come over here and list them, you now have an IDRSA, which is the private key, and IDRSA.pub, which is the public key, you may have guessed. So now we want to tell Git that we want to use it. Well, rather we want to tell the SOS Lab GitHub page that we want to use these keys eventually. So all you have to do is type the cat command, which does concatenation IDRSA.pub. And here you get this long key of randomly generated characters that will be used as your public key. So I can show you this. You still can't get my stuff without the private key, so don't come trying to hack me. So in this terminal, all you have to do is select text, and then it's copied to the clipboard. So what are we going to do with it? We're going to go over here to our GitHub page, click your picture, go to Settings, then SSH and GPG keys, and scroll over. We're going to do New SSH key in the top right. So this one we will make, I'm going to call it Demo because that's what this is, and then Control-V, paste that key in, add SSH key. Okay, so now the server is all ready to accept our SSH keys, but we still have to tell Git how to use it. There are a lot of really wonky workarounds for this, but there's also a really easy one, and the way that we handle that is by creating a configuration file that Git will come read. So if we come back over here, we need to create a file. So if you want to, hop into the .ssh folder and do this with Nano, you're welcome to do it, or rather Notepad, but I'm just going to use VI because I have it and it's handy. So this file is called config. There's no extension, it's just config. And in here, we need a handful of things. First, we need to know what Git is going to expect as the name of the server that we're trying to log into. So that is called the host, and it is github.rcac.purdue.edu. Then we need a host name. This is the no kidding address that previous name, that reference is, and it happens to be just itself here. Of course, if you want to alias it, you could, but then you can't use the copy-paste feature, which I think is kind of worth it for cloning new stuff. We also need to know who we are. So just in case your username happens to be different on your computer than the one as you log into Git, we need a user, and this is going to be me, my career account. And then we need to specify the key. So that is called the identity file. And it is located at /.ssh/id_RSA. So now we can save that and quit, and we should be done. So if I cat config, just to show you what's in there, that's the file we've created. Now, this is where the magic starts to happen. So if I go to Git, which is where I want to put this thing, and I now come back over here, click System of Systems Laboratory and Repositories, and I navigate on down to Start. I have this clone or download button again. This time, though, I'm going to click Use SSH, so the address is slightly different. Click the copy button, come over here. I'm going to do Git Clone and Shift Insert Pastes. And now I'm going to get a repository that's called Start. But this time, first I have to say, yes, I trust the website that we're connecting to. And there it is. There's Start. So Start gives you something else that is useful and that you should use, and that is the cloning tool, which I mentioned before. So there's a README here on exactly what it is. You can see the commands if you just clone.sh. You'll get the set of flags that you can use. There are not very many. There's N to pick the name of a repository, or F if you want to specify a URL. If you use the names, it does some fancy configuration of the URL behind the scenes. There is an optional P flag, which is the protocol. So by default, it uses HTTPS, which will prompt you for your password and is lame. Or there's SSH, which is what we're going to use this time. And then there's a -T, which is if you want to give it a different name, like you want to do examples, and you want examples 1 and examples 2 and examples 3, or so on and so on like that. So just as a demo, if you want to get the examples repository, which we can see over here in our list somewhere. Well, there is an example. Oh, there it is, right at the top. Examples. So looking at these names, any of the ones you can see, you can clone. So you can do /clone.sh space -p ssh space -n for the name, examples. And then clone will go behind the scenes, fix up some of your aliases and tools, and create you that repository. Also, it will check out the right branches for public SIM to make sure that you're not on some other thing. Let's look here. We now have examples, and there it is, which is great. Now we're inside. We can -b, my new feature, and we can start working. We're ready to go. So this is still, though, in my opinion, a little bit lame, just because, do I really want to type git checkout master? That is not awesome. I could make an alias to do that, and I'll show you, for example, my personal git config. .git config. You see, I have aliases set up in addition to having my name, my core editor, all this stuff. So we showed that we had that file. It's not as cool, but we're getting started here. So here are a handful of things that we set up. Here are these names, and then this is the stuff that Clone set up for you, so you have a pull all alias. But you're more than welcome to start adding things to that and make this your own. Now that you're in the Git swing of things, you could also make yourself a GitHub account, which is what I do, and save these things in a .files repository so that you have, for example, all of your configurations up on Git. If you get a new computer, you can go put new aliases, or not new aliases, you can get your same aliases, all your same stuff, no matter what computer you're on, which I think is invaluable, and I do on all of my machines. I highly recommend, if you're not using Git already, as you're learning, create yourself an account, make a repository for your class notes, make repositories for your .files, just do a lot of Git, make a lot of pots. Back over here though, this is okay, but it's still not awesome. So what we might like to do is a couple of other little tweaks to make our lives easy. So I would recommend you make a .bashrc file, and inside of that you can do something like create aliases, alias gs equal git status. So I think that's how that works. Let me close it out and start another one, because you don't need to mess with sourcing necessarily. Oh. That's interesting. All right, thank you for creating me a bash profile. Now if I do cd git, cd git, because we're in the wrong place, cd examples, gs for git status. So rather than have to remember all these commands and type everything out, learn them once, make a bashrc, put them in there, or make a git ignore, put them in there, and then you'll be good to go. So that's the end of this sort of three-part deal on getting started with Git on Windows, getting access to the System of Systems lab, and then the little bit of setting up your configuration just to make it more comfortable and homey for you. Git is not easy. It has a lot of tutorials, and there's a lot of stuff to digest. Go Google search for Atlas and Git tutorial, read through it, watch YouTube videos. It's totally worth it. For all the work that you're going to do, instead of having docx files where you have version 1, version 2, version 3, version final 1, version final really final, Git takes care of all of that kind of stuff to you. It's a really powerful tool. I recommend all of you to go learn it, and we'll be back with more videos in the future for how to use Git, what it is, and best practices. So happy Gitting, and we'll see you all around the SOS Lab.